"Can I work as a waiter to eat the leftovers?" asked the homeless boy to the restaurant owner. Frank Miller was watching the lunchtime crowd when he noticed the boy standing at the entrance of the restaurant. The boy held a torn backpack against his chest and stared hungrily at the plates passing by the tables. That's when the boy approached the counter and asked the question that would change everything forever. "Can I work as a waiter to eat the leftovers?" said the boy with a shaky but firm voice. Frank stopped drying the glass in his hands. At 62, he'd seen a lot in life, but something about this request touched him differently. The boy couldn't have been more than 12 with messy hair and clearly worn-out clothes, but his eyes held a determination that impressed him. "What's that, kid?" Frank asked, setting the glass down on the counter. "I know how to work, sir. I can wash dishes, clean tables, sweep the floor. I just want a place to stay and something to eat at the end of the day." The restaurant owner looked around. Grandma's Corner was a simple establishment in downtown San Diego that had been running for over 20 years. The dark wooden tables and straw-seated chairs gave the place a cozy feel. Old photos of the city on the walls told a bit of its history. "What about your parents, kid? Where are they?" The boy lowered his eyes and gripped his backpack strap tighter. "I don't have a mom or dad anymore, sir. I've been living on the streets for about 2 months." Frank felt a tightness in his chest. Miss Dorothy, the cook who had worked with him since the restaurant opened, came over drying her hands on her apron. "What's going on here, Frank?" she asked, eyeing the boy curiously. "The kid's asking for work in exchange for food," Frank explained. Dorothy was 68 with a heart too big for her chest. She'd raised 4 kids alone after her husband left her and knew well what it was like to struggle. "What's your name, son?" she asked kindly. "Tommy, ma'am. Tommy Wilson." "And where did you sleep last night, Tommy?" The boy hesitated before answering. "In Central Park, ma'am, under the bandstand." Dorothy looked at Frank with that familiar expression, the same one she used when she wanted to convince him of something. Frank sighed and turned back to the boy. "Listen here, Tommy. I can't hire you officially, understand? You're too young and I'd have trouble with inspections, but..." He paused and glanced at Dorothy, who gave him an encouraging smile. "I can let you help out here a few hours a day. In return, you get lunch and dinner here. How's that?" Tommy's eyes welled up, but he tried to hide it. "Thank you, Mr. Frank. You won't regret it." "You'd better make sure I don't," Frank replied with a half smile. "But first, you're going to take a shower and eat something. Dorothy, take him to the bathroom and see if there's any clean clothes in the back." As Dorothy led Tommy away to clean up, Frank thought about what he'd just done. He was always a practical man who thought twice before making decisions. But there was something about that boy that reminded him of himself when he was young. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Half an hour later, Tommy returned, unrecognizable. His clean face revealed delicate features and green eyes shining with gratitude. Dorothy had found him a pair of jeans and a t-shirt that, though too big, looked much better than his torn clothes. "Now you look like a proper kid," Frank joked. "Sit down and Dorothy will fix you a plate." As Tommy eagerly ate his rice, beans, steak and salad, Frank watched his every move. The boy ate slowly, savoring every bite as if it were his last meal. "It's been a while since you've had a proper meal, huh?" Frank asked. Tommy stopped eating and looked at him. "About 3 days, Mr. Frank. Sometimes I manage to get some fruit at the market, or if I was lucky, someone would give me a snack." "And how did you end up on the streets?" The boy stayed quiet for a moment, stirring the beans on his plate. "My mom got sick and passed away. I was living with an aunt, but she moved and didn't take me with her." Frank sensed there was more to the story behind those simple words, but he didn't push. In time, maybe Tommy would feel comfortable sharing more. "Well, now that you've eaten, let's see what you can do. Dorothy, show him how to clean the tables properly." The rest of the afternoon flew by. Tommy proved to be a smart and hard-working boy. He quickly learned how to clean tables, arrange chairs, and even serve water to the customers. The regulars were surprised by the boy's politeness and kindness. Mrs. Wilson, a 70-year-old lady who ate at the restaurant every day, was one of the first to notice Tommy. "Who's this boy, Frank?" she asked when Tommy stepped away from her table. "He's a new helper," Frank replied, not wanting to go into details. What a polite boy. He reminds me of my grandson. When the rush died down, Frank called Tommy over to talk. Listen, kid, you did good work today, but I need to know one thing. Do you have somewhere to sleep tonight? Tommy shook his head. No, Mr. Frank, but don't worry, I can manage. That's what I figured. Look, there's a small storage room above the restaurant where I keep things. There's an old bed in there. It's not fancy, but it's better than the streets. Tommy's eyes widened. You'd let me sleep here? For now, yes, but there are rules. You wake up early, take a shower, keep yourself clean and work hard. And one more important thing, you're going back to school. School? Tommy looked surprised. Of course, you're a kid. Kids belong in school. Tomorrow we'll figure out how to get you enrolled. That night, as Tommy settled his few belongings in the little room, Frank stayed in the kitchen talking to Dorothy. Do you think I did the right thing, Dorothy? Frank, in the 40 years I've known you, I've never seen you do wrong when you followed your heart. But it's a big responsibility. The boy has no family. Sometimes we find family in the most unexpected places, she said, greasing the pans for the next day's bread. Frank looked out the kitchen window. The street was quiet, lit only by the streetlights. He thought of Tommy sleeping in the little room upstairs and felt a strange sensation in his chest. It was as if a missing piece of life had fallen into place. The next morning, Tommy came down before Frank even arrived. He had swept the dining area and arranged the chairs. When Frank arrived at 6 in the morning, he found the boy sitting at the counter reading an old book. Good morning, Mr. Frank, Tommy said cheerfully. Good morning, kid. Where'd you get that book? Found it upstairs. Can I read it? Frank looked at the book. It was an old copy of Mark Twain he'd bought years ago and forgotten in the storage room. Of course you can. Do you like reading? Yes. My mum always said reading lets you travel without leaving your seat. That phrase echoed in Frank's mind all morning. There was a natural intelligence in Tommy that impressed him more and more. Over breakfast, Frank explained the plan to enroll Tommy in school. We'll need your documents. Do you have a birth certificate? Tommy nodded and went to get his backpack. From inside, he carefully pulled out a plastic bag containing a few papers. My mother always told me to keep this safe. Frank examined the documents. Birth certificate, vaccination card, a few photos. And there he discovered something that surprised him. Tommy had just turned 13, not 12 as he'd thought. You had a birthday last month and didn't say anything. Tommy shrugged. Wasn't much to celebrate, right, Mr. Frank? At that moment, Frank decided he'd make sure Tommy's next birthday was celebrated the best way possible. Enrolling Tommy in school was easier than Frank expected. The principal, a kind woman named Ms. Henderson, listened to their story and offered to help. Tommy would be placed in 7th grade and start classes the following Monday. What grade were you in before? The principal asked Tommy. 6th grade, ma'am. I always liked school. Then you won't have trouble keeping up, she said with an encouraging smile. On their way back from school, Frank took Tommy to buy some clothes and school supplies. Nothing too fancy, but enough to make the boy feel included. Mr. Frank, why are you doing all this for me? Tommy asked as they picked out notebooks. Frank paused. It was a question he'd been asking himself. You know, Tommy, I never had kids. Always focused so much on work that life passed me by. When I saw you at the diner, I remembered myself as a boy. My parents had a small bar and I always helped out. I think you deserve a chance, just like I got. I won't let you down, Tommy said seriously. I know you won't. The first days of school were a little tough for Tommy. He'd missed a few months and had to work hard to catch up, but his dedication impressed the teachers right away. At the diner, Tommy became more helpful every day. He learned to take simple orders, organize supplies, and even help Dorothy in the kitchen with basic tasks. This boy's got good hands for cooking, Dorothy told Frank one afternoon after Tommy had made a perfect salad. You think so? I'm sure, and I know what I'm talking about. Been cooking for over 50 years. The regular customers also grew fond of Tommy. Mrs. Wilson always asked for him to serve her table, and Mr. Walter, a retiree who played dominoes with friends every afternoon, always left him a tip. That boy's got a future, Mr. Walter told Frank one day. Polite, hard-working, smart. You did right by helping him. But not everything was smooth sailing. One afternoon, a well-dressed woman came into the diner and watched Tommy closely. She ordered coffee and stayed over an hour, keeping her eyes on him. When Tommy went to clean the nearby table, she called him over. "Excuse me, young man. What's your full name?" Tommy eyed her suspiciously. "Tommy Wilson, ma'am. Why?" "Tommy Wilson who? What's your mother's name?" "Sorry, ma'am, but why do you want to know?" The woman tucked a paper into her purse and stood. "No reason, just curious, thank you." She left money on the table, but Tommy felt uneasy. He told Frank about it, who also found it odd. "Never seen that woman around here before," Frank remarked. "You sure you don't know her?" "Positive, Mr. Frank. But she acted like she knew me." That night, Frank kept thinking about it. There was something about the woman's behavior that bothered him. He decided to keep an eye out in case she showed up again. The next week, Tommy brought home his first report card. The grades were good despite the early struggles. "Congratulations, kid," Frank said, looking it over. "You worked hard." "Thanks, Mr. Frank. My English teacher said I write well." "Is that so?" "Yeah." She even asked me to participate in a school essay contest. Frank felt an immense pride, as if Tommy were truly his son. It was amazing how that boy had changed his life in such a short time. "Of course you'll participate, and if you need anything, you can count on me." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. A month later, the mysterious woman returned to the restaurant. This time she wasn't alone. A man in a suit accompanied her, and they asked for a table at the back of the dining room. Tommy was at school, so they didn't see him. But Frank kept watching and noticed they were speaking in low voices and checking some papers. When they went to pay the bill, Frank decided to ask, "Can I help with something?" "You seem to be looking for someone." The woman exchanged a glance with the man before answering. "Actually, we're looking for a child, a boy who might be working at establishments in the area." "What kind of child?" Frank asked, trying to sound casual. "A boy around 13, an orphan, who ran away from an institution." Frank's heart raced, but he kept his expression neutral. "No, I don't know of any child like that around here." The man left a card on the table. "If you see anything, please call us. It's for the child's good." After they left, Frank looked at the card. It was from a social worker. That made him even more worried. When Tommy came back from school, Frank called him aside for a private talk. "Tommy, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Did you run away from somewhere, from an institution or a shelter?" Tommy turned pale and looked down. "Mr. Frank, The truth, Tommy. Some people came here looking for a child. I need to know what's going on." Tommy took a deep breath before answering. "After my aunt abandoned me, I went to a shelter. But there, it wasn't a good place, Mr. Frank. Some staff treated us badly, and the older kids bullied the younger ones. I tried to tough it out, but when a boy younger than me showed up all bruised, I couldn't stay anymore. Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I was afraid you'd send me back, and I like it here. I like you and Ms. Dorothy. Here, I feel at home." Frank's heart ached. He knew the situation was complicated, but he couldn't just hand Tommy over to those people. "Listen, Tommy, we'll handle this the right way. Tomorrow I'll find a lawyer to understand our rights." "Are you going to send me away?" Tommy asked, his eyes filled with tears. "Not if I can help it," Frank replied, hugging the boy. "You're not just a helper here anymore. You're part of our family." That night, Frank couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about all the possibilities, all the paths he could take to protect Tommy. The boy had become so important to him, and the thought of losing him was unbearable. The next morning, Frank went to see Miss Henderson, the school principal. He trusted her experience and knew she genuinely cared about Tommy. "Miss Henderson, I need your help with a delicate situation," Frank explained the whole story to her. "What a complicated situation, Frank. But I'll tell you this. In all my years in education, I've rarely seen such a positive transformation as Tommy's. He was lost, and you gave him direction." "But what about the legal side? Can they just take him away?" "It's not that simple. If you can prove the previous environment was unsuitable and that Tommy is better off now, there's a chance you could get custody of him." "How?" "First, we need a lawyer specialized in family law. Second, we'll need documentation proving that Tommy is well cared for, attending school and receiving medical attention if necessary. What about the people who came looking for him? They'll definitely be back. When that happens, you need to be transparent but also firm about your rights. Tommy has the right to choose where he wants to stay, within legal limits. Frank left the school feeling more hopeful. At least now he had a plan of action. That afternoon, while Tommy was in school, Frank went to see the lawyer Miss Henderson had recommended. Dr. Robert Thompson had an office near downtown and was known for taking on social cases. "Mr. Frank, I'll be straight with you," the lawyer said, after hearing the whole story. "The situation is delicate but not impossible. The fact that Tommy ran away from the shelter could work in our favor if we can prove negligence or mistreatment." "And how do we do that?" "We need to talk to Tommy, get details about what happened at the shelter, and if possible, contact other kids who left there. We'll also need to prove that his current environment is suitable for his development. That won't be a problem. He's in school, working, has a place to live, food. Perfect. But there's an important issue. Officially, you can't keep a child without being their legal guardian. We'll need to start the custody process as soon as possible." Frank left the office with a list of documents to gather and steps to follow. It was bureaucratic and complicated, but at least there was a path forward. When he got to the restaurant, he found Dorothy visibly worried. "Frank, that woman came back. She waited for you for almost an hour. Said she'd return tomorrow. Did she ask about Tommy?" "She asked if he was here. I said I didn't know anything, but she didn't seem to believe me." Frank decided it was time to have a serious talk with Tommy about the whole situation. When the boy got back from school, they sat down in the kitchen for a frank conversation. "Tommy, I spoke with a lawyer today. He said there's a legal way for you to stay here with me, but we'll need to file for custody." "What's that?" "It's like I'd become your legal guardian, like an adoptive father, but not exactly adoption." Tommy was quiet for a long moment. "What if it doesn't work?" "Then we'll try another way, but I won't give up on you, Tommy. I want you to know that." "Mr. Frank, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why is this so important to you? I mean, I know you're a good person, but why take a risk for me?" Frank looked at the boy who had unexpectedly changed his life. How could he explain that Tommy had filled a void he didn't even know existed? "You know, Tommy, when I was younger, I thought success in life was just about having a thriving business, money in the bank, recognition. I spent years focused only on that. I never married, never had kids, always thought there'd be time for that later. When I saw you that day, asking for work in exchange for food, I saw courage. I saw determination. I saw everything I admired, but I also saw a kid who needed a chance, and you know what else? You gave me a chance too." "How so?" "You gave me the chance to be important in someone's life, to make a difference, to have a family." Tommy was moved by Frank's words. "You're already my family, Mr. Frank. You and Miss Dorothy. No matter what happens, I'll always remember you saved me." That night, Frank felt more determined than ever to fight for Tommy's custody. The next day, as Dorothy had predicted, the social worker returned. This time she brought an officer and asked to speak with Frank privately. "Mr. Frank, we know the minor, Tommy Wilson, is under your care. We need him handed over immediately to return to the institution. By what authority are you making this request?" Frank asked, recalling the lawyer's advice. The woman showed some papers. "Tommy is a child under state custody. He ran away from an institution and needs to return." "And can I see a court order for his removal?" The social worker hesitated. "We don't have a court order yet, but..." "Then you can't take him. Tommy is well cared for. He's studying, has a home and food. If you want to remove him, you'll have to follow legal procedures. Mr. Frank, you're obstructing official business. I'm protecting a child who was being neglected. If you want Tommy, you'll have to prove in court that he was better off in the shelter than he is here." The social worker left visibly irritated, but Frank knew he'd only won a battle. The war was far from over. He immediately called Dr. Thompson. "Doctor, they were here. They didn't have a court order, but they'll come back with one." "Perfect. That gives us time. We'll speed up the custody request. I need Tommy to come to my office tomorrow to talk." When Tommy heard about the social worker's visit, He was terrified. "They're going to take me back, aren't they?" "Not if I can help it. Tomorrow you'll talk to the lawyer. You'll tell him everything that happened in the shelter. Everything you remember. It'll be hard, but it's necessary." "I can do it," Tommy said firmly. "If it means staying here with you, I'll tell everything." The conversation in Dr. Thompson's office was emotional and difficult. Tommy recounted the mistreatment he'd witnessed, the lack of proper medical care, insufficient food, and violence among the children. "Tommy, you mentioned a younger boy who showed up hurt. Do you remember his name?" the lawyer asked. Ryan Parker, he was 8. "And do you know what happened to him after you left?" "I don't know, Doctor, but I was really scared something worse would happen." Dr. Thompson took detailed notes and explained the next steps. "We'll file for emergency custody. I'll also request an investigation into the shelter. Tommy, would you be willing to speak with a psychologist? It's important to have a professional assessment of your emotional state. If it helps, I'll talk to anyone I need to." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. While awaiting legal decisions, life carried on at the restaurant. Tommy kept studying and working, but now everyone was more tense, waiting for the authorities' next move. It was during this tense week that something unexpected happened. Tommy was serving a table when an elderly man who had just arrived called his name. "Tommy? Tommy Wilson?" The boy turned and went pale. "Professor Richard?" he said softly. The man stood quickly and hugged Tommy. "My boy, I've been looking for you for months. When I heard you'd left the shelter, I was desperate." Frank, who had been watching from a distance, approached. "Excuse me, sir, you are—" "Richard Hayes. I was a volunteer teacher at the shelter where Tommy stayed. One of the few staff who actually cared about the kids." Tommy looked at Frank, then at the professor. "Mr. Frank, this is Professor Richard. He helped me with my studies at the shelter." "Is that true, Tommy?" Frank asked, still wary. "Yes, Professor Richard was the only good person there." Richard sat down and asked to speak with them. "Do you know why I've been looking for Tommy? Because serious things happened at the shelter after he left." "What kind of things?" Frank asked. "The boy Tommy mentioned, Ryan, was hospitalized with severe injuries. This opened an investigation, and we uncovered a pattern of neglect and abuse that had been going on for years." Tommy was visibly shaken. "Is Ryan okay?" "Yes, my boy. He was placed with a foster family. But your escape and what you told the other boys were crucial in bringing the truth to light." "Professor, they want to take Tommy back," Frank explained. "We're trying to get custody of him." Richard smiled for the first time during the conversation. "Then I can help you. I've documented several cases of neglect at the shelter. I have reports, photos, testimonies from other children, and I can testify that Tommy was suffering there." This was the first good news they'd had in weeks. Dr. Thompson was thrilled when he heard about the professor's involvement. "This changes everything. With professional testimony and documentation, our position becomes much stronger." But the good news didn't stop there. At school, the English teacher called Tommy over to share some news. "Tommy, you won first place in the school's essay contest. Your essay about family and belonging was the best of them all." Tommy ran to tell Frank, who was moved. "What did you write about?" "I wrote about how sometimes we find family where we least expect it. About how you and Ms. Dorothy showed me that family isn't just blood, it's care, it's love." Frank had to hold back tears in front of all the customers. "You'll read that essay to me tonight, deal?" That night, after the restaurant closed, Tommy read his essay aloud. It was a mature, sensitive piece about abandonment, loneliness, but also hope and new beginnings. "Tommy, what a beautiful essay," Dorothy said, wiping her eyes. "For you have so much talent." "The teacher said she wants to enter me in a citywide contest," Tommy shared excitedly. "Of course you'll participate," Frank said. "I'm so proud of you." It was in this moment of happiness that the news everyone feared arrived. Dr. Thompson called to say a court order had been issued for Tommy's removal. "They're coming to take him tomorrow morning," the lawyer explained, "but I've already filed for a habeas corpus. We might be able to stop the order. And if we can't, then Tommy will have to go, but it'll only be for a short time. With the new evidence we have, especially Professor Richard's testimony, I'm confident we can turn things around quickly." Frank hung up with a heavy heart. How could he break this to Tommy? When he did, Tommy took the news with more maturity than Frank expected. "Mr. Frank, if I have to go, I'll go. But promise me, you won't give up on me." "I promise, Tommy." "Can't you promise you won't give up on us?" "I promise." That last night, no one at the restaurant slept well. Frank lay awake thinking of all the moments he'd shared with Tommy, how that boy had changed his life for the better. Dorothy prepared a special breakfast with all of Tommy's favorite foods, "to give you strength and remind you that people are rooting for you," she said. At 9 in the morning, the social worker arrived with 2 officers. Tommy was already ready, a small bag in hand. "Tommy Wilson," the social worker confirmed. "Yes, ma'am. You'll come with us to a new temporary shelter until your situation is resolved." Frank stepped forward. "I'd like to go with you to see where he'll be staying." "That's not possible, Mr. Frank." "Then at least give me the address. I'm the closest thing he has to family." The social worker hesitated, but finally handed over a card with the address. Tommy hugged Dorothy tightly as he said goodbye. "Thank you for everything, Grandma Dorothy," he said, using the affectionate nickname for the first time. "You'll come back, my boy. I'm sure of it." Then it was Frank's turn. Their embrace lasted several seconds. "Don't forget what we talked about," Frank said. "I'll never forget. And you don't forget your promises either." "Never." When the car drove away with Tommy, Frank felt as if a part of himself was leaving too. Dorothy was crying openly. "He'll come back, Frank. That boy is ours and he knows it." "I hope you're right, Dorothy." The restaurant felt different without Tommy. Customers asked about him, especially Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Walter. "Where's the boy?" Mrs. Wilson asked on the first day. "He is handling some family matters," Frank replied, not wanting to go into details. "I hope he comes back soon. This place isn't the same without him." Frank thought so too. Everything reminded him of Tommy. The table he always arranged in a specific way, the corner of the kitchen where he liked to read, the chair where he did his homework. Dr. Thompson worked tirelessly on the case. Professor Richard had provided all the documentation he had about the issues at the previous shelter, which greatly strengthened the custody request. "Frank, I have good news," the lawyer called 3 days later. "We got a hearing scheduled for next week. The judge wants to hear from Tommy as well as you and Professor Richard." "Is that good?" "It's very good. It means they're taking our request seriously." Frank visited Tommy twice that week. The new shelter was indeed better than the last, but Tommy was visibly sad. "How is it here?" Frank asked. "Better than the other place. The people are kinder, but it's not home, Mr. Frank." "You'll be back home soon, Tommy. Have faith." "I do. And you know why? Because you taught me that sometimes bad things happen, but if we don't give up, good things happen too." Frank was struck by the wisdom of that 13-year-old boy. The week of the hearing arrived quickly. Frank was nervous, but Dr. Thompson reassured him. "Remember, Frank, you're not asking for any favors. You're showing that you're what's best for Tommy, and that's what the judge wants to know." The hearing took place in a small, less formal room than Frank had expected. The judge, Judge Davis, was a man around 50 who seemed genuinely interested in hearing all sides of the story. First, Professor Richard spoke, detailing the problems at the previous shelter and how Tommy had been affected. "Professor, in your professional opinion, what would be the best environment for Tommy?" the judge asked. "Without a doubt with Mr. Frank. In all my years working with institutionalized children, I've rarely seen such a positive transformation as I witnessed in Tommy when he was at the restaurant." Then it was Frank's turn. He told the whole story, from the day Tommy showed up asking for work to his plans for the boy's future. "Mr. Frank, do you have the financial means to support a child?" the judge asked. "Yes, Your Honor. The restaurant provides a steady income. I own my home, and I have health insurance. But more important than that, I have love to give." "And what are your plans for his education?" "Tommy is very bright and loves to study. I want him to finish high school, and if he wants to go to college, I'll pay for his education." Finally, it was Tommy's turn to speak. The boy was visibly nervous but answered every question honestly. "Tommy, where do you feel happiest? the judge asked. At Mr. Frank's restaurant, Your Honor. There, I feel at home. I feel loved. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone believed in me. And if I allow you to go back there, do you promise to keep studying and behaving well? I promise, sir. And it's not just a promise. I really want to study. I want to grow. I want to make Mr. Frank proud of me. Why is that important to you? Tommy thought for a moment before answering. Because he taught me that family isn't who had you. It's who wants you. And I know he wants me, not as an employee, but as a son. The judge fell silent for a few moments, reviewing the papers in front of him. Well, this is an unusual case, but I believe the child's best interest must always come first. Mr. Frank, I'll grant you temporary custody of Tommy for a period of 6 months. During this time, there will be regular social worker check-ins. If all goes well, we'll consider making the custody permanent. Frank felt his legs tremble with emotion. Tommy smiled for the first time in a week. You can pick Tommy up tomorrow morning, the judge concluded. Outside the courthouse, Frank, Tommy, and Dr. Thompson embraced. We did it, the lawyer said. Now we just have to keep up the good work. Mr. Frank, did we really do it? Tommy asked, still in disbelief. We did, son. You're coming home. It was the first time Frank had called Tommy son out loud, and neither of them felt awkward about it. The next day, when they returned to the restaurant, Dorothy had prepared a surprise party. Mrs. Wilson was there, Mr. Walter, a few other regular customers, Tommy's English teacher, and even Ms. Henderson, the school principal. Welcome back, sweetheart, Dorothy said, hugging Tommy tightly. Thank you, Grandma Dorothy. I missed you so much. And we missed you too, Mrs. Wilson said. This place wasn't the same without you. Tommy looked around at all the people who cared about him and realized he was truly home. Mr. Frank, he said, approaching the man who was now officially his guardian, can I ask you something? Of course, son. Do you regret letting me in that day? Frank looked at the boy who had changed his life so completely, who had filled a void he didn't even know existed, who had given his days meaning and purpose. Tommy, that was the best day of my life. And you know why? Because it was the day I gained a son. Tommy got emotional and hugged Frank, and I gained a dad. The party lasted all afternoon. Tommy received gifts, ate cake, and laughed a lot. But what moved him most was seeing how many people cared about him. When everyone had left and they were cleaning up the restaurant, Tommy made a confession to Frank. Mr. Frank, can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course, son. That day I came in asking for work, I'd already asked at over 10 places. Everyone turned me away or humiliated me. When I got here, I was desperate. It was going to be my last try. Really? Really? If you'd sent me away too, I don't know what I would have done. You saved me more than you realize. Frank was moved. You saved me too, Tommy. You saved me from an empty life without purpose. How so? I was just existing, not really living. You taught me what it means to have someone to care for, someone to be proud of, someone to love like a son. That night, for the first time in weeks, they both slept peacefully. The following months passed quickly. Tommy continued excelling in school and even entered 2 more writing contests, winning one of them. At the restaurant, he had become an essential part of the team. The social worker visits went smoothly. The caseworker assigned to them was different from the first, more understanding and genuinely interested in Tommy's well-being. It's amazing to see how much Tommy has thrived in this environment, she remarked to Frank during one of her visits. We rarely see such a successful adaptation. He's a special boy, Frank replied. It's not just him. The environment you've created here is truly family-like. Tommy has stability, affection, opportunities. It's everything a child needs. Frank began to feel more confident about the possibility of permanent custody. It was during this time that something unexpected happened. One day, an elegant woman walked into the restaurant and asked to speak with Frank privately. Mr. Frank, my name is Amanda Wilson. I'm the sister of Tommy's mother. Frank was shocked. You're Tommy's aunt? I am, and I need to talk to you about a very important matter. Frank asked Dorothy to keep an eye on the restaurant and took the woman to a reserved table. Ms. Amanda, Tommy told me his aunt had moved away and didn't take him with her. Amanda looked embarrassed. It's a complicated story, Mr. Frank. When she passed, I did move to another state for work. I left Tommy with a neighbor thinking it would be temporary. When I came back for him, I found out he'd been taken to a shelter. And why didn't you go after him? Because I was single, working long hours, traveling constantly. I thought the shelter would give him more stability. But now I'm married, my life has settled, and I'd like to take care of my nephew. Frank felt his world crumbling. Just when everything was going well, this complication appeared. Do you have any documents proving your relationship? Amanda showed her sister's birth certificate and other papers. Mr. Frank, I'm not here to cause trouble. From what I've heard, you've taken great care of Tommy. I just want to meet him, talk to him. Tommy's at school right now, he'll be back soon. But before anything else, I want you to know Tommy is like a son to me. I won't let anything or anyone hurt him again. I understand, and I truly admire what you've done for him. When Tommy came home from school and saw Amanda, he looked visibly confused. Aunt Amanda, he said hesitantly. Hi, Tommy. You've grown so much. What are you doing here? Amanda explained the whole situation to Tommy, who listened in silence. Tommy, I know I hurt you when I moved away. I know I abandoned you when you needed me most. But now I want to do things differently. I want to take care of you. Tommy looked at Frank, then at Amanda. Aunt, your blood family. But him, Tommy pointed at Frank, he's my real family. He took me in when I was desperate, gave me a home, food, love, put me in school. He never abandoned me. Amanda was clearly emotional. Tommy, I understand, and I'm not here to take you away from where you're happy. I just wanted to be part of your life in some way. Frank, seeing the woman's sincerity, decided to step in. Miss Amanda, how about we talk this over calmly? Tommy needs all the family he can get. Maybe we can find a way for everyone to be part of his life. Tommy looked surprised at Frank. Mr. Frank, aren't you afraid of losing me? Tommy, if I've learned anything these past months, it's that real love isn't possessive, it's generous. Your aunt has the right to be with you, and you have the right to know your family. Amanda was clearly moved. Mr. Frank, you're a very special person. Any father would be proud to have a son like Tommy, and any son would be proud to have a father like you. Then here's what we'll do, Frank proposed. We'll talk to the lawyer, see how we can arrange this legally. But one thing's certain, Tommy will keep living here with me. This is his home. I completely agree, Amanda said. I just want to visit him, take him to meet my husband, maybe spend some vacations together. Tommy smiled for the first time since Amanda had arrived. I'd like that. I've always wanted to learn more about my family. Dr. Thompson explained that the situation was completely feasible. Amanda may have visitation rights, but it doesn't affect Frank's custody. In fact, it might even strengthen the case by showing Tommy has a broad family support network. The following months were a period of adjustment for everyone. Amanda visited Tommy once a week, and he spent a weekend at her place getting to know her husband, who was a very kind person. How was the weekend? Frank asked when Tommy returned. It was good, Dad. They're nice. But I missed home. Frank smiled. Tommy had started calling him Dad naturally, and it always moved him. When the day of the final custody hearing arrived, everyone was tense but confident. Amanda even went to the courthouse to support Frank's request. Your Honor, she told the judge, I'm Tommy's biological aunt, but I recognize that Mr. Frank is the father he chose and deserves. I fully support permanent custody. The judge reviewed all the social services reports, which were extremely positive. Tommy has maintained excellent grades in school, shows emotional stability and happiness, and has a solid support network. Mr. Frank, I'm granting full custody. Congratulations to you both. When they left the courthouse, Tommy hugged Frank tightly. It's official now, Dad. We're family forever. Forever, son. They celebrated at the restaurant with an even bigger party than the first one. The whole community was there to celebrate. Mrs. Wilson gave an emotional speech. Frank, 2 years ago, you were a lonely man who lived only for work. Tommy, You were a lost boy with nowhere to go. Look at you now, a beautiful, united family that inspires us all." Mr. Walter added, "You've taught us that family is built with love, not just blood." That night, after everyone had left, Frank, Tommy, and Dorothy stayed talking in the kitchen. "You know something," Dorothy said. "When Tommy showed up here that day, I had a strange feeling. It was like he was exactly what was missing in this house." "I felt that too," Frank admitted. "It was like he'd always been part of our family, just lost for a while." "And do you know what my first impression was when I walked in here?" Tommy asked. "What?" Frank and Dorothy asked together. "That I'd finally come home." 2 years later, Tommy was in 9th grade and still excelling in his studies. He'd won several writing awards and developed an interest in literature. Frank had managed to expand the restaurant, and Tommy was already helping with the management. "Dad, can I talk to you?" Tommy asked one afternoon. "Of course, son. What is it?" "I've been thinking about my future. I want to study literature and become a teacher." "A teacher? That's an interesting idea. Why?" "Because Professor Richard showed me how an educator can make a difference in a child's life. I want to help other boys who are lost like I was." Frank was moved by his son's maturity and generosity. "Tommy, I'll support whatever choice you make, and I'm sure you'll be an extraordinary teacher." "You really think so?" "I'm certain. You have something that can't be taught, compassion, and that's the most important thing in an educator." Tommy smiled. "Dad, can I confess something?" "Of course. Sometimes I'm grateful for everything I went through before coming here, because if it hadn't happened, I'd never have learned to appreciate what I have now." Frank hugged his son. "Tommy, do you know the greatest lesson you've taught me?" "What?" "That sometimes the best things in life come disguised as problems. When you walked in here asking for work in exchange for food, I thought I was just getting a helper. Actually, I was gaining a son and discovering my life's purpose." That night, as they closed the restaurant together, father and son reflected on the journey they had taken. "Dad, if I could go back in time, I'd do everything exactly the same," Tommy said. "Me too, son. Me too." Grandma's Corner remained a special place in the community. Frank and Tommy started a social project, offering free meals to underprivileged children once a week. Dorothy, even at 70, was still the heart of the kitchen. Amanda became a constant and cherished presence in Tommy's life. She and her husband were considered family by everyone at the restaurant. Professor Richard also remained part of their lives, helping Tommy with his studies and becoming like a grandfather to him. "You know you're an example to everyone, right?" he said during a visit. "You've proven that love and dedication can overcome any hardship." One special afternoon, 3 years after that first day, Frank was sorting through old papers when he found a photo of Tommy on his first day of work. The boy was visibly malnourished and wearing torn clothes, but he already had that determined look that had caught Frank's attention. "Tommy, come see something," he called. Tommy looked at the photo and smiled. "Wow, I was so skinny." "Do you remember what you were thinking that day?" "Yes, I do. I was thinking, please let this man give me a chance. And you gave me so much more than a chance. You gave me a new life. And you gave me a reason to live, son." They looked out the restaurant window. The evening rush was starting, familiar customers arriving, life moving at its usual happy pace. "Dad, there's something I've always wanted to know," Tommy said. "What?" "If you hadn't let me stay that day, what would have happened to me?" Frank thought for a moment. "I don't know, son. But I do know we would have found each other somehow, because some people are meant to be part of our lives, no matter the circumstances." "Do you think it's fate?" "I think it's love, Tommy. I think when there's true love, the universe conspires to bring the right people together at the right time." That night, during a family dinner, Frank, Tommy, Dorothy, and Amanda, who had joined them, Frank made a special toast. "I'd like to raise a glass to the family we've built, not by blood but by choice. Not because it was easy, but because we persevered. And above all, because of love." "To love," everyone repeated, raising their glasses. Tommy looked around the table at the people he loved and who loved him back, and realized his journey had been perfect, just as it was. 3 months later, on a sunny morning, Tommy was helping Frank open the restaurant when a boy about 10 years old appeared at the door. He was visibly hungry and clutching an old bag. "Excuse me, sir," the boy said timidly. "You wouldn't happen to need someone to help here, would you? I'll work for food." Frank and Tommy exchanged a glance and smiled. "What's your name, kid?" Frank asked. "Joey, sir, Joey Baker." Tommy stepped forward. "Joey, come in, let's talk." End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of this story of transformation and family? Did Tommy make the right choice in trusting Frank? Do you believe love can create bonds stronger than blood? Leave a comment sharing your thoughts and where you're watching from. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartfelt stories like this one.